Hello viewer, welcome to KTV News Analysis. Today we make an incisive analysis of a subject that has been in the lips of many but has never had any answers, any clear answers. The question is the Kenyan economy about to go bust? Are we at the risk of defaulting on loans because of indebtedness? These are some of the questions we want to bring answers to. Welcome. Is the Kenyan economy about to go bust? This is a scary question, but it is a realistic one. We are constantly bombarded with doomsday scenarios due to the country's debt. We have overborrowed, say the scaremongers. Are we in danger of an economic meltdown? Perhaps we could begin by asking, when does borrowing become overborrowing? Is there such a thing as overborrowing? My advanced Oxford Dictionary does not have such a word. This means that the term overborrowing is spurious. I will therefore not refer to it in this report. Borrowing is the use of someone else's assets with the intention of returning it. It is therefore a legal and authorized use of someone else's asset. Can anybody trust you with an asset for use unless they are convinced that they shall get it back? To be sure, a debt is a burden, and any lender must assess a customer's ability to pay back even a shilling unless they are donating. It is a heavy burden if you don't have the ability to pay back. That is why commercial banks ask for 3 months pay slips to be sure you can pay your loan before they approve it to buy that dream car. They also ask for guarantors just in case you default. Your dream car is a consumer which brings no financial return except the satisfaction of owning a car, much the same way as borrowing 100 bob to buy your lunch. Borrowed for consumption, that 100 bob is 100 bob too much because you are now minus 100. If you have a way of paying back, then it's probably not a burden. But if you don't have the wherewithal to pay back, then beg if you must. But suppose you borrowed the money to buy food for sale, or suppose that dream car becomes a taxi. Is the debt still a burden? It is not. The money generated by your business can repay the loan, assuming you have done your homework well and that you are frugal. What is true of individuals is also true of governments. If they are prudent and invest the borrowed funds in areas that generate more benefits to the country, then they should borrow, and borrow some more. To expand their businesses, individuals and companies borrow, and borrow some more, because borrowed funds help in expansion plans that generate more profits. Borrowing is bringing your future incomes or future earnings forward to today. Governments too borrow to provide socio-economic services that support the productive sectors of the economy. For they borrow to build roads, railway lines, power supplies, power generation facilities, equip hospitals. Like individuals, governments face too many needs to satisfy with the limited resources. Therefore, they must borrow. That is true of the Kenya government, which is in a hurry to develop infrastructure, power sources, transport infrastructure, and to provide security, health, education, you name it. The resources, your tax money, is not enough to satisfy all these needs. Someone us to chip in from somewhere else. That is how we come to borrow from our friends outside the country or from sources inside the country. Kenya borrows from domestic financial institutions and multilateral internationally from multilateral and bilateral sources. The total debt stock was $34 billion at current rates in 2015, which leads to the question, are there accepted yardsticks to measure a country's ability to pay its debts? Yes, the starting point is our national wealth, commonly known as GDP. Kenya's GDP was $68 billion in 2015, but is estimated to have grown by 5.6% last year to $72 billion. The debt stock has also grown. The IMF, in its January 2017 debt sustainability assessment, estimated that the debt stock to be 54.4% of GDP, which puts the debt stock at $39.2 billion. This gives each of the 48 million Kenyans alive today a per capita debt stock of $813. The 2016 GDP is estimated at $22 billion. This gives each of the 48 million Kenyans a per capita GDP of $1,500. The implication here is our economy is too strong to finance any debt. This is supported by the International Monetary Fund. In its debt analysis published in January this year, the IMF lauded Kenya's economic robustness, saying there was low risk of debt distress. How is the risk of distress measured? Critics prefer the debt per capita approach. And at $813, the burden could look unsustainable. However, the critics conveniently ignore the national wealth side of the equation, which according to IMF is $1,500 per capita in 2016. If we deduct the debt per capita from the national wealth per capita, we get a positive balance of $687 per capita at the current exchange rates. The international GDP's debt stock threshold is 77%. At this point, debt service would begin to eat into economic growth rates, say experts. The IMF in the January 2017 DSA gave Kenya a high score in this regard. Our wealth can repay the debt. On the second score, whether the government is prudently using the money it borrows, the same report says the prime movers of robust economic growth were continued strong expansion in the construction and the electricity sectors, favorable weather conditions, and a recovery in tourism. The debt was incurred to finance infrastructure development, which is considered a bottleneck to economic growth and development. Among the guzzlers is a standard gauge railway, which will cost $1.5 billion to reach Naivasha. Other sectors that guzzled large debts, according to a local daily, include the transformation of health systems facility, which consumed $140 million, and the Youth Employment and Opportunities Project loan, also at $140 million. Another 200 million was borrowed to support the implementation of devolution and strengthen the institutions concerned with the process. Other debt guzzlers include the upgrade of Rift Valley Textile Factory at $30 million, the Okaria Geothermal Power Development Project at $230 million, and access to Sirari Corridor at $230 million. Financing the country's fiber optic infrastructure cost $90 million, and $200 million was borrowed to help turn around Kenya Airways. In effect, the loan went to support the expansion of economic activity. None went to support consumption, as in paying salaries and pensions, as happened in Greece. All will contribute to economic growth in future. For instance, the SGR line, experts say, will contribute 1.5% of GDP growth a year once complete. The Nairobi-Mombasa section will be commissioned on June 1st, 2017, and thus begin to contribute its share of sweat and tears to the Kenyan wealth creation. Going by the current GDP level of 72 billion, the SGR will directly contribute some US dollars $1 billion a year. This is not a mean feat coming from one segment of the transport sector only. Kenya's national debt stock is the largest in the region, critics say. That is true. But they never tell us Kenya has not been forgiven her debt. Kenya was not forgiven because she managed her debt well. So, going back to our original question, is the Kenyan economy about to go bust? Are we staring at an economic meltdown sometime in future? The answer is an emphatic no. The economy is robust, growing, and is able to pay its own debts. Dear viewer, for more of this type of business news analysis, please subscribe to KTV.